So every pack out has one of these. So these are all interlocking heads. So now you got, when you need to get right up tight and you can't get your drill up there and you're trying to do this and then it's stripping everything out and it's a nightmare, that'll get you up tight, right? You can rotate these things, put them in any position you need, lock them down. So if you, again, are trying to get in tight on the side, you got a cable here, you can't get in there, this will get you close. Most of the time you can angle this one and it'll work, but yeah, this has also got a 90-degree drive, right? So if you're in a spot where you need to like screw up and there's limited access, you can get your drill bit or drive bit in this thing. You can turn it sideways, you can rotate it around however you need to rotate it around. But the reason I bought this thing was for this. The pilot bit looks like it actually has some carbide. This is now an actual SDS proper hammer drill. For the number of holes that we're going to drill, this should be adequate 90% of the time. We do have, the real hammer drills if you need a real hammer drill, and for certain applications, like when we go to North Van to do the trellises there, we're going to need an actual proper hammer drill to put the fasteners in the concrete ceiling. But for exterior wall attachment, this should be more than adequate, I would think. Have any of you guys tried these things?
Well, those things for sure. If you're using Tapcon, you're going into cinder block. This will work. And Tapcon's a great group cinder block.
Yeah.
If you're going into exterior walls of a full slab, concrete, or in the floor, depending on how old it is.
Yeah.
If it's a fresh slab, fresh walls, you can probably get away with that, but if it's probably 10, 15, 20 years old,
it'll be harder.
So we might want something a little heavier.
So when you're drilling for a Tapcon, if your Tapcon's this long, how do you need to drill? Yeah, you need to give it for sure another ½ inch, right? It's not the worst idea to take your vacuum and vacuum out holes if you can, because what will happen is the concrete dust gets packed up in the end, and it basically stops the Tapcon from going any further before you've got it all the way in, and then invariably you keep driving it, and then it just strips out, and now you're fine, right? So you want to try and go as deep as you can within reason. Right? Obviously, if you're using a Tapcon that's this long, you don't want to drill all the way down to here every single time. That's just a waste of time, right?
You won't always get full depth once you chapter
So if you hit a rebar and you can't go far enough, then you need to move your hole. Because you're not going to drill. Yeah, you're not going to drill through the rebar.
In like 2 seconds.
Yeah, especially these tiny ones. It'll just absolutely massacre these tiny ones, right? So
Actually, I think I got rid of the ones that were in there. Too bad. I should have kept them.
these
That box.
these come with a safety handle, which attaches right here, which makes it a little easier to manage this thing. This safety handle has a handy dandy depth stop on it.
Good for your wrist.
So you can just put this little thing in here,
So that's the journey.
and then this you can use to control your depth, right? So you can figure out how deep you want to go, and then you just set this thing accordingly, and then every hole you drill will go to exactly the same spot, right? So, once you've figured out a depth that's working, then just, now drill everything the same depth, the way you go, right? So, every toolkit has one of these, right? So when you run into problems, again, this is why we want everybody to have the same set of tools, so that I can say, go get the 90-degree driver, go get the offset driver, go get the hammer drill attachment, and I know that you've got it in your toolkit, right? If you don't take it with you and I tell you to use a tool that I think you've got and you left it here in the shop, you're screwed, right? You've got to come up with a different solution. Dust collector for here. Instead of using the bag, you can hook a vacuum to that. I know I tried a test cut with that thing. It shoots metal friggin' everywhere, like all over the place. So you really need to be using a vacuum on that one. I know it's convenient for you guys because you can be up on top of coolers and you can make your cuts right there. And yes, it makes nice clean cuts, but it definitely is sending metal shavings all over the place. So you guys got to be very cautious about where you're making your cuts and how you're making your cuts. We'd have to look on Milwaukee's website and see if they offer an accessory bag. Usually the bags are not sold separately. Normally if the tool doesn't come with a bag, then there isn't a bag. Usually the way that it works or it has worked in my experience, is it'll come with a bag, and then you have to buy the little attachment to hook it up to a vacuum. So since that one came with the attachment, I'm gonna work on the assumption that it's not meant to have a bag. But we can look, like, that thing should only be getting used for fascia. It should not be used for anything else. That was purchased for cutting metal fascia and for only cutting metal fascia. Yeah, and too much dust. It's just way too much dust. That's why we have the Fez tools. The number one reason I bought the Fez tools is because of dust collection, right? And even with the dust collection that Fez tools have, you still need to tarp off your area. You still need to vacuum afterwards, right? It's just you're doing less of that than you. So like for me, these tools shouldn't even go onto the job site every day. Like there's no point in hauling these onto the job site with you because there's almost 0 times that you need to use them. We have them because every once in a while you gotta cut some unistrut. Yeah. But I mean, you can cut unistrut with a jigsaw blade if you got the right jigsaw blade. And it's probably cleaner and easier, and they don't bust your balls about hot works inside the store, right?
Yeah, you gotta use a hot.
Oh, the unit's where you can go with that. But
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's gonna kill the metal blade pretty quick. How long do those blades last for?
Well, the fascia does probably. I couldn't see units better than anybody.
I mean, you can, it's what they're meant to be, for sure, right? But I would be more inclined to cut the right or the unistrut and the rod with the jigsaw. With a proper method. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, right? Safest way as well, given the constraints of safety and everything else, right? Jigsaw is not likely to send a bunch of metal shavings flying into your eyeballs. Grinder definitely will. What are we using the grinder for otherwise? I think really it was just for cutting rod and strut is what we were using them for before, right?
I think so.
We bought that saw for the TC fascia specifically. It's got a blade in it that's meant for metal, and then you can use a triangle guide and make nice straight cuts of that.
And I guess
Pinched in the case. I'll do it every time. Well, we'll plug it in here again and see what's what. Lasers are lasers, so you're missing your measuring tool, which you know. Yeah, so we gotta get you another one. This is, for some reason, there's an on-off switch here, but the on-off switch is with the Fez tool now.
Been shipping by one dot.
Yeah, a different one. I don't know why it would have been in there anyways. It's like, so the Bosch ones are my preference to use in the field just because they shoot further, right? It shoots a long ways. But you can use the DeWalt ones. Sometimes it's helpful to have more than one, especially when you're trying to get around big ground. Does everybody know how to tell what type of batteries you guys have? Do you know what amp hours on batteries mean? 3 amp hour battery, 2 amp hour battery, 2 amp hour battery. It's not hours, no. It's just, it's a measure of how much energy they can store. So a 2 amp hour battery has 50% less power than a 3 amp hour battery, right? Doesn't have anything to do with that. It depends on the current draw of the tool that you're using. If you put one of these in a planer or a router, it's gonna be dead in 20 minutes, right? If you put one of these in a planer or a router, it's gonna be dead in 10 minutes. That's what it is, right? You know, in a laser, it probably lasts fairly well, but definitely, you know, you guys all have a 3 amp hour battery. The 3 amp hour battery is specifically for the router or the planer, just because they hog through batteries pretty quickly. You know, obviously, when you look at these batteries, this is a 3 amp hour. That's a 3 amp hour, right? So why those are bigger than the Bosch ones, I don't know. This one's, that's a 2 amp hour. That's a good battery. That's a 4 amp hour. That's a 4 amp hour. I think these ones are 6 or 8. I can't remember. That's 6.3. The newer ones. Yeah, I mean, the Jigsaw, you should be able to use a 4 amp hour batteries if they're fully charged. You shouldn't be killing a 4 amp hour battery using a Jigsaw unless you're being an absolute dickhead when you're using it. And the battery's charged quick enough. You should be able to leave the 4 amp hour battery on the charger. See if you guys got that spot for the last one. Everybody likes the blue gun? Very, very handy. And then we had standard fine finish blades. So it's just a regular upcut blade. And then when you're cutting just plywood, like if you're hacking off mounting brackets, cutting faces or whatever, and you got these bad boys, of course, fast cut ones. That's probably what you want to be using.
Battery too.
Metal blade? No. No metal blades. What would you need a metal blade for? For the fascia, we're gonna have a separate pack-out kit that's gonna have that saw, and it'll have metal blades for a jigsaw and all of that kind of stuff. But there's no point in every single crew rolling around with that stuff when every single crew is not doing that.
No,
right?
because some
So-
people will use it for wood or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So we want to basically give you the stuff that you need for the normal day-to-day operations. And then if you're doing metal fascia, or if you're going to a yig, like if we're going to the yig, we may have to look at sending a 12-inch chop saw. That might be the only way we can cut that fascia, right? Because
The what?
that's a yig. Yeah, you've got the buildup on it, right?
For doing miters,
Yeah.
best tool.
The 75? The bigger
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
It's awesome,
Yeah, okay.
because that's what I used at, Leduc there.
Who knows
man.
what this does? This is speed, so that controls how fast it goes. This is controlling how much the blade moves forward. So as it goes down, it moves forward, it comes back up, it moves forward. The more it moves forward, the more it will cut. So this is controlling how much it cuts, right? So if you're trying to get around an ultra tight bend and you've got it set like this, it's just gonna jam the blade. It won't go around the corner at all. So you move it like this, and then it's hardly taking anything, and then you can go very slowly and work your way around the corner. That's what this does, right? I think we bought more of these, right?
Yeah.
Some of them,
We bought three.
maybe another little setting is to turn on an air blower,
Yeah.
right? And it'll actually blow the sawdust that's being created away from the blade so that you can see where the blade's cutting. Definitely on this one, if you look at this, it has a 0 here, right? So this is just now going straight up and down. It's not moving at all. And as you move this forward, it's gonna,
Best way
as
to
it
try
goes,
that is you cut out a sinkhole on your blade and it starts chipping really bad, just adjust that noise.
Yeah.
It'll stop chipping.
yeah. When you're cutting plywood and you're just hacking all brackets and everything, fast cut blade, put it to the front so it's chopping most material as it goes. When you're trying to do finer cuts, you probably want to think about backing that off. Probably need to get you guys some smaller ones. What are we using this for?
Please don't use this.
Yeah. It's very limited applications, but it's one of those things where when you need one and you don't have one, it's a problem. So again, this is one of those tools that probably doesn't need to go on the job site every day.
1 minute above concrete curb.
But we may find that there is another tool that is more useful, that's needed on a more regular basis, that we'll put in the cart instead of this one. But this one would then be stored in the truck, so that if you need it on those rare occasions, you have it. And if you're going in one night and you know you're gonna need it, you can take one of the other tools out, pop this one in, and away you go. That's why this stuff is all interchangeable, right? That's the whole idea.